Coach Smith, we didn't get a chance to talk after last week's game, been about a week, but I want to kind of go back and talk about that game, a very good Hines team on the road to close out the season before we kind of look at the overall season. But my perspective, and I said it on the air, Hines, in my opinion, was the best talent I thought we saw all year. I thought their quarterback, running backs, and their defensive line were as good as anybody we played. That's my assessment without talking to you. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so, obviously, coming into this season, what a blessing just to be here and have this opportunity, but, kind of going in blind and really ignorant to these teams a little bit. So the plus to getting this 6-game season underway and as you leave now educated on what you got to do. Well, what you have to do is there's a big gap you got to close with Gulf Coast, Jones, and Hines. I mean, those are the 3 superior teams on our side. So now that we know that and we're educated on that, we can do a really good job this offseason of making sure we close some of those target holes to try to get closer to these 3 teams. Credit their coaches, their players. They had a great plan, but they also had really good players. And we got exposed at some spots. And you're not ever going to hear me make an excuse. I'm just shooting you straight, being honest and talking to you. Part of the learning curve for me, for example, was so going into the season, I only kept 2 quarterbacks on roster. Well, after the Jones game, 1 quarterback goes down, so now you only have 1 guy left, Jake, who did a great job for us all year. Well, whenever he went down in Hines in the third quarter, you're left with a running back or a receiver. You got to put at quarterback. So, we were stuck in the second half, but that's just due to that's my fault. That's coaching. You can't put your team in a position where if a young man goes down, your next option is to move a kid from a completely different position and just have to snap it to him and run it. So just so much stuff that we learn that we'll use starting in January on. And just honestly, just excited that we got these 6 games underway. Proud of how hard the kids played. But now we have a measuring stick of how far we got to go.
Let's talk about those 3 ball clubs. I mean, and not that we want to get in depth, but, looking at the things that they do, and without talking about weaknesses per se from your ball club, but just talk about the things that they do so well that we've got to get better. Let's hit certain areas that they do. You say, hey, we got to get better in that area.
All right, so the biggest thing that stands out to me, and this would be even, if it were high school, there are 3 programs that are grounded. What I mean grounded, their coaches have been there for a few years, okay? So they've been incorporating their vision of who they are and what they are for years, bringing in the players to fit their program for years. So there are 3 grounded programs who have a strong foundation. So your hope is that your experience in this league and really understanding who you are and what your culture is, now you bring in your guys in that fits your needs, give you a chance to close that gap a little bit. Because the biggest thing that stood out to me are 3 really good coaches who understand the league, understand their team, understand what you have to compete in this league because they've been doing it for years. So that's the biggest thing. Yeah, they do have good players, but I felt like we had good players too. Now moving forward, we just got to make sure we do a better job knowing what we have and who we have to beat, putting them in position to be successful against those teams.
Seth, if you don't mind, let's kind of break it down and go through different areas. Talk about your defensive line. I thought you had 2 guys especially, well 3. I'm gonna call Colton Carter played really well, particularly the last 3 ball games. But I thought Jared Johnson and Jalen Gall they were for the most part consistent throughout the whole 6-game season.
Yeah, defensively, other than maybe 2 quarters in Jones and 1 quarter at Hines, I honestly thought we played competitive on defense for all but maybe 3 quarters. And some of that had the 3 that we were poor in was just lack of execution. But yeah, I mean, those 2 guys played well. And the other thing, we had 9 sophomores on defense. So even though those may not have been guys we brought in, they were still experienced football players who I felt like serviced us well throughout the year. So proud of how they fought, but it was clear that, in this league, you got to be pretty big up front. All right, you got to be pretty fast on the back end.
Yeah.
So we're going to try hard to close that gap this spring and then recruiting, toward the end of this fall of getting some guys in to fit some of those needs. But no, I'm proud of how they played.
Thought at times, great effort, mismatches here and there, but those mismatches to me were not across the board. It was strictly individual matchups from time to time that get us in trouble, but that's part of football. That's the other team being smart enough to exploit those.
No, you're right, and again, that goes back to coaching. Guys who have been there kind of have a clear understanding of really, what you're going to see week to week, and really knowing where those matchups are. And And we did get exposed on those at time, But again, that's where as coaches we got to do a better job of knowing, okay, if they're going to expose this is our plan B. That way you're not consistently getting stuck, getting exposed to the same spot.
Secondary, you had some guys I thought overall had a pretty decent year. Had some really big bright spots there.
Yeah, I thought Coach Sims, man, I did. This was our first year to work together, and couldn't be proud of him and his position. You go back and watch film last year, it seemed like at times they gave up some pretty big plays in the back end, and we did a couple times, but for the most part, consistently, I thought our secondary fought hard and was lined up properly, and that's a credit to him.
Linebackers, of course, that starts with Noah Mitchell. What a great year he had. Back-to-back, years for him, averaging over 13 tackles a game in all season. Took some directive from Coach Trahan and the staff. You got to slim up a little bit. It's almost like he did everything that was asked him to do, and he had another great year.
Yeah, Noah. Now you talk about inheriting good players. Yeah, obviously, you wish you could get one of him every year. He's a kid who I remember him in high school, was an excellent high school player. Actually had a D1 offer out of high school. Had a great year as a freshman, comes back, does a great job for Coach Trahan, and really was just our leader all year on that side of the ball. He did a great job of helping, keep us in games, made a ton of plays, defensive touchdowns, creating turnovers, and that momentum at time helped us win a couple football games and kept us in most games.
Indeed. Let's take a quick jump across the line on the offensive side. You talked about it all year, that very young, inexperienced, other than Hayden West had all the snaps the year before, but they come back and you finish sixth in total offense in the league out of 13 teams with basically 4 freshmen playing on the offensive line. Quite impressive in this league. Yeah,
man, look, proud of that. Proud of Coach Chatham and those guys, each week for, incorporating plans to try to give us a chance. Obviously, the last game, especially the second half, looked ugly, but that was due to me only having one quarterback on roster. So, again, that's lesson learned. But super proud. To me, if you'd have told us that, you're going to start almost all freshmen, and we had 8 freshmen on offense, okay? So that's a lot of youth. So for them to come in and compete the way they competed is awesome and proud of that. But I'm going to be honest, as a competitor, you're happy that you made strides, So I like to look at data, and I pulled some numbers from 2018, 2019. So in 2018, and I had to measure it against these 6 teams.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
So in 2018, against these 6 teams, Pearl River scored 90 points and gave up 188. In 2019, Pearl River scored 44 points and gave up 208. So this year in 2020, we scored 141 points and gave up 186. Now, is that where we want to be? No, it's not.
Right.
But you put that on paper to see that there were strides in a positive direction, because as a competitor, you're happy to see progress is made, but ultimately you want to win. That's what you want to do. But at least you see, hopefully, you're doing some things right, and you can build on that in the offseason.
Looking at those 6 games, Seth, one of the things that stands out, Barry and Jacob talked about this numerous times, but was the fact we never felt like we were out of a game. Jones, halftime got away, but you outplayed them and basically beat them second half. You don't get a W for that.
Yeah.
But if I look back, Gulf Coast right there with them, two possession ball game. You look back at Colin, the turnovers. The game should have won. I don't want to bring it up. I know it's going to get a frown from me because I feel the same way. That's one that just got away. That's the bottom line. It got away from us. Then I look at the great effort against Southwest, great effort against East Central, and then look at Hines. They were just filthy good. So if you look at it from that perspective, it's more the competitiveness there. I think and I'm gonna say this: that line is not as wide as it may appear if you look at a 2-4 record. That line of being right there is very, very narrow.
No, we feel the same way. We honestly do. And when you end the season the way you ended it, you end it really, really hungry. Obviously it would have been great to win that game and finish 3-3. That would have been wonderful. But when you end it that way, there's a hunger there. You really that you can't replace. That leaves you just ready for January to hurry up and get here, and excited for January to get here, because the development of our program will always be obviously in recruiting, and then in the off season developing what we have coming back. Because we don't think that line is big. We feel like it's pretty small. Mm-hmm. So to close that gap or that line, so to speak, we got to make sure we do it in recruiting and in this offseason. But a ton of positives, there really are. But as a competitor, ultimately you want to win. But now that we have an idea of where we are, where we need to go, and really what these teams look like. That helps so much in recruiting.
You can only watch so much film.
You can, but we're going to keep watching a bunch of it.
And I mean that from a perspective to get the real feel of the toughness,
sure,
and the talent in this league. I'm talking about.
Yes.
You can't watch film.
Nope.
You got to be on the sideline. You got to be in the booth. You got to be somewhere there in that. And I call it the arena.
Yes.
Because it is an arena.
No question.
It's a bullfight every week. You have to see it firsthand to understand.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And another thing I look at, I know I'm rambling a little bit, is and this is evident, man. This is this is clear. Okay, excuse me. Quarterback play in this league is huge. All right, the trigger man is huge. You've got to do a great job of having some balance, and this was my fault. We got away from that a little bit late, and if you keep these defenses balanced, you give yourself a better chance. Well, that balance comes with the guy pulling the trigger. So, we got to really make sure the fella that says downset Hutton next year is one that we feel like can give us a good balance on offense, because that's going to be huge moving forward.
I told you this, and I'm always straight up with you too. I was shocked how well you ran the football this year. Offensive line shocked me to no end. Was so happy for them. I wanted you to talk about Millsap, the job he did for you. Will Young, you knew him probably better than anybody. Yeah. You knew what to expect from him. And then again, Chris Holyfield Jr. Those guys right there were lights out. I mean that because having watched this league as much as I have, they all performed at that level, a level good enough to win.
No.
When I say win, I'm talking about on a consistent basis.
No, look, Mr. Carey, you're right. Those three guys in the O-line honestly were good enough to help us be successful. So if you can now merge that with an adequate passing game, man, that's where you have a chance to be pretty dadgum good. So we expect to run the ball even better next year. But we also will work tirelessly in this offseason to make sure that our passing game merges with our running game to where we can constantly keep people on our toes. Because for us, we feel like that's going to be the key.
Stetson Moore, going to move on, going to play at Liberty University, had a good year. But the guy, and we talked about this, the first interview of the year, the guy we talked about was Frog Jones. And I'll say this, as they say when you go see a great movie, it didn't disappoint.
No, look, listen, he's a job security kid. You get enough frogs on your team, you get to hang out in Poplarville for a little while. So, I mean, he was a treat. He was a joy. We plan on bringing him back unless somebody, Division I scoops him up in the spring. He's, sat down and said, look, Coach, I'm coming back unless, I get the 4-year offer I want. So we're excited about him and Holyfield and Tavion and a lot of these guys who are pretty electric coming back.
I was going to go to Tavion next. You didn't steal my thunder. You kind of turned on the switch. But he made and Frog great getting the ball at open field, and Stetson, strong guy going up and get it. Tavion, he impressed me because I'm gonna say this: the guy made probably the toughest catches of anybody all year. I go back and think of 4 or 5 catches he made that he had 2 guys hanging on him a couple of times, and he came down with the football in a jump ball situation.
Yeah, he's an Oak Grove kid, and Coach Causey and him do a wonderful job. So we love getting their guys. He's actually a guy who was an H-back. But we didn't want to recruit him as an H. We felt like we could put him out wide because he is long, he runs good, he's got great hands, and he did not disappoint. He's a kid who it was clear about week 3, it's time to leave him on the field. And he got better and better and better. So we're excited about bringing him back. And really, it's kids like him and Frog and Holyfield, who can be somewhat centerpieces for your team that you can work around and hopefully score points.
Yeah. So let's talk calendar here. We're sitting here and week before Thanksgiving. Kind of walk us through the calendar from the coaching perspective of what's ahead of you between now and when you play next fall. Because there's a lot of work to be done. You talked about recruiting. There's also just spring, hopefully, knock on wood. But just kind of walk us through that calendar of what's ahead for you and your staff.
Yeah, so obviously, the recruiting opened up Monday. Today's Wednesday. It opened up Monday. So you hit the road hard. You get out, and all these kids that you've been evaluating, not only in district but out of district, you get to go meet them and offer them and do that. So you got to work really hard into November, all in December, and all in January trying to secure the guys you want to bring in. But you also have potential mid-year guys, some transfers who may come in. So your January roster will look completely different, than your November roster. So just got to work hard, really, of recruiting this month, next month, and then when the kids come in January, developing the ones you have coming back. That way, when you bring in your freshmen in the summer, you've got a really strong sophomore group because you've had them for 4 months working them that we didn't have that luxury last year. But you have those guys developed with the new guys that you bring in, and then you hope when you roll that ball out in late August of 2021 that the presentation's completely different.
It's going to be different.
We feel like it will be.
And I mean that as good as it was, I just sense with some of the names you talked about here today, they're going to be coming back. The unity of this staff, I get to see it. Not everybody gets to see that inside look that I see. There's something special brewing here. It's kind of like you got the big pot there and it's starting to boil a little bit and you're getting all the ingredients put in it. That's why I look at it.
Yeah, we feel like it is. Look, I've said it time and time again. I mean it. The good Lord blessed us with a great opportunity, and we want to make sure we make the most of it. Well, you make the most of it by putting in the work. We're going to put in the work. We're going to push these kids, love these kids. And I've said this a bunch, and I mean this, to field a program, that's reflective of this wonderful institution we call Pearl River Community College, because we want it to be reflective of what this place is. This is a championship place, so we want to make sure what we put on the field mirrors that.
One thing that you'll scribble down some more about this season with this bunch, you're going to write one sentence, what would that be about this 2020 ball club?
One season about the 2020 ball club.
One sentence. One sentence about this season.
I don't even know if that would be a sentence. I'd just give you a word: perseverance. Yeah, this was a year you really had to persevere. First time here, first time at this level. COVID hits, 4 hurricanes hit, no spring, I would say perseverance. And really, I'm also say joy. The reason I'm saying joy, I'm so thankful for these kids, man. They fought through all that. They had to fight through all that stuff just to get to this point. And obviously, we want to always do much better than what we did, but ultimately we knew coming here, when you're trying to rebuild something, it's a process. And you've got to you've got to hit on that process quick, because you ain't got but 2 or 3 good years to make sure that process is showing and you're seeing the fruits of your labor. So I would say perseverance would be the word that I would use for this season. I know I didn't give you a sentence, but it's just that word sticks out. Perseverance. You had to persevere.
Coach, thank you so much for your time. Can't wait for next year. Hopefully all these things will lift and they'll be fighting for tickets to get in Dobie Holden, I can tell you that.
We sure hope so. And again, we're excited and we will make the most of this opportunity.
Thank you, Coach. Roll River Roll.
Yes, sir. Thank you.